Welcome to another episode of the Meal Prep Monday podcast. I'm your host and founder of Prep Dish, Allison Schaaf. In today's episode, I am talking about a newly formed sleep habit. It's completely free and it's made a huge difference in my life. I was planning to do a 2-part sleep episode and then this came up. So I'm recording this kind of after I did those first 2 episodes in the last 2 weeks. If you want to hear more about my sleep routines and habits, go back to the last 2 episodes. Before we get into today's content, I have an email from Prep Dish customer Megan. Megan writes, Prep Dish has saved my sanity on numerous occasions. I can't imagine mealtime in my house without it. We've tried many new ingredient and new flavor combinations, and we've been pleasantly surprised by several of the recipes. I tell every busy mom I know about it. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you for sharing, Megan. And if you're listening and have not tried out the Prep Dish meal plans, I encourage you to go to prepdish.com/MPM, short for Meal Prep Monday. You can try it out 14 days for free. Check out all the different meal plan options we have, see how it works in your life, and maybe like Megan, you'll be pleasantly surprised. Again, that's prepdish.com/MPM. That link will also be in the show notes if you need to reference it there. Okay, so for today's episode, I was thinking about this and I was like, I just recorded a few episodes on sleep. I should jump back in and give an update here. So I think it was last week's episode. One of the habits I talked about at the end was, I'm trying to sleep on my back. It sometimes happens. I think it helps. So an update there, and that is that I since then was having more shoulder and neck pain. It's a very specific area that really it pops up anytime there's a baby in the house. And so I know it's from lifting a baby, holding how I hold. I try and kind of address all of that. I've worked with a physical therapist. I have a chiropractor I visit. But it really gets annoying over time. Although I found, so yes, the baby plays a role in it, but I also find that when I wake up, it really sometimes can hurt. So I started to go on this rabbit hole of I need a better pillow. I mean, I have tried so many different pillows and none of them really seem to help. And then I started thinking, I'm still sleeping on my stomach a lot. I bet if I try and switch my sleeping position and really commit to sleeping on my back, let me just see if that makes a difference before I go and buy all these other pillows and all that. Let me just really commit to this sleeping on my back thing. So that's what I did. I decided I'm going to sleep on my back and just really notice the next day and the days after, if my neck and shoulder pain is better. And sure enough, I think after the first night, it was a little better. Now I've been doing it a few weeks. I noticed last week. So I typically go to the chiropractor about once a week, especially with, having a baby and doing more of that lifting. And last week I didn't go and I was fine. This week, today, I'm not I really need to fit in time to go to the chiropractor today. So I love my chiropractor, but I love it more when I don't have to see him on a weekly basis and I can kind of just go in a few times a month more for maintenance. I'm also not lifting weights, and I do find when I'm doing more heavy weightlifting is when I also have to be a little more regular with the chiropractor. But yeah, this seems like a huge win to be able to solve that issue just by switching up my sleeping position. And I don't want to act though it's just by switching my sleeping position. Because the other thing I have to keep in mind is I slept on my stomach and sometimes side for probably 40 years of my life. I remember always being a stomach/side sleeper. And so changing that habit is a lot of work and it can be huge. I find that I really needed this. So in last week's episode, I talked that sleeping on my back was something I wanted to try to help with the fine lines and wrinkles, which that's a nice goal and a nice thing to help with. I don't think that alone was enough to really motivate me to go all in and do it. So it really took this shoulder neck pain to push me over the edge of I am going to really force myself to try this to see if it works. I will say though, the second benefit I've noticed is those fine lines around my kind of nose and mouth. I'd been taping my face maybe for 6 to 9 months now. And I do notice it's a lot less, right? After doing the tape for it took a few months, but when I would go to place the tape, I had more trouble finding those fine lines, which means, it's working, right? But now with only a few weeks of sleeping on my back, there's some lines that just are literally not even there. So I don't know if it's combination of the tape and sleeping on my back, or if just sleeping on my back would have been enough to kind of eliminate some of those, but it has made a significant noticeable difference. I had a routine appointment with a dermatologist and I asked her about it, and she did say that yes, that certainly like sleeping on your back, if that's something you can do, makes a big difference. So that is my back sleeping update. If you have neck and shoulder pain and or want to address some fine lines around your, mouth and nose, I don't find that it does as much for like the forehead wrinkles. It's more those like little fine lines. And you can tell which lines are sleep lines by if they're unevenly distributed on your face. Like there was one by my nose was only on the side that I slept on. So it was like very obvious that that was a sleep line. So some of the fine lines you can tell are sleep lines, and those are the ones that will be impacted by sleeping on your back. So that's been my experience. I thought maybe you'd be curious for an update, since in the last episode, I really only touched on it. And then just another quick update that, oh my goodness, the baby is sleeping through the night and I can't believe it. So with the last two, I finally just got over like, okay, babies just don't sleep through the night until at least 6 months old. I know you always have that friend or that person online that says, oh, at, 4 months old, my baby started sleeping through the night. But then you hear sometimes that means like 6 to 8 hours. And I'm like, well, a 6-hour stretch is great, but like, I don't know, if they go to bed at 9 and are up at 1 or 2 in the morning, like, is that really sleeping through the night? I don't know, not in my book. So I just really have been unattached with that as a goal. Like, sure, like I practice safe sleep habits and work towards that, and I have to brag that my baby is sleeping through the night at like 4.5 months old. And when I say that, I mean 8 to 10 hours. So very proud of him and very excited. I was trying to not be attached to that as the goal. Again, like my last baby, we were at the year mark and he was still just waking up so early. And so I tried to keep the expectations down and have been very pleasantly surprised. So those are my two major updates for today. And I'm trying to decide, because in re-listening to the sleep episode before I did this one, like with the update, I might do a fun little episode. I know I did one a few months back on all of the memoirs that I've been reading. And my latest obsession on books is Kristen Hanna novels. And it's sort of a love-hate relationship. If you've read Kristen Hanna novels, you know. So I'm trying to decide if that's way too far off topic or if I'm just going to sneak it in as like a fourth follow-up of a sleep episode in this little mini series that we're doing. So TBD, I haven't decided yet on that, but that's all I have for this week's episode. A reminder that if you have not tried out Prep Dish, you can go to prepdish.com/MPM. We have a 2-week free trial setup special for all of our Meal Prep Monday listeners. That link is in the show notes. If you are a longtime listener to this podcast and have not left a rating or a review, I would so appreciate just taking a few minutes to do that. It helps other people to find this podcast. That's all I have for this week's episode. I will be back next Monday with another episode.